So we are here today with Dr. Alice Smith. Dr. Smith is a professor at Auburn University in the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering, as well as the Department of Computer Science and Software Engineering. So first, Dr. Smith, thank you for spending some time with us today. Thank you so much for allowing us to share your story with the state of Alabama. And on behalf of the entire Yellowhammer team, congratulations on being named a Woman of Impact.
Well, thanks. It was a great surprise, and I'm just really excited to have this amazing recognition and also to represent Auburn.
Well, certainly it is well deserved. So you've previously served as chair of your department at Auburn. And during that tenure, the department witnessed some unprecedented successes, student enrollment, funding, just lots of tremendous things during that time. So to what would you attribute the success?
Well, I think it's because we worked together as a team. Frankly, when I came to Auburn, I came from University of Pittsburgh, and Auburn and other public universities were going through very bad financial times, especially with state funding and proration. And some departments were being curtailed or merged, and they were looking to merge our department with another department in engineering, which really would have been a shame because our department at Auburn has been granting degrees since 1932, which makes it one of the oldest industrial engineering programs in the country and one of the very oldest in the Southeast. So the leadership at that time decided to give the department another chance, and fortunately they took a chance on me. I was pretty young at that time. It was 21 years ago. It's hard to believe. And I joined, and the faculty had been depleted because there were people who left for various reasons. But the core faculty we had, we worked together as a team to identify where we needed to focus our efforts. We modernized the curriculum. We aimed to get more visibility among students and parents about the major and all the opportunities. And to that end, we relied quite a bit on our alumni, which we have a number of very famous alumni from the department. We also hired faculty members who shared our vision about re-energizing the department and being focused on many things, great teaching, but also exciting cutting-edge research and service to the profession and to the community. So I have to say, I never expected to actually be at Auburn this long, but as you can tell, I've grown to love Auburn by choice, not by birth, but also that we would achieve so many goals. And I was the leader for 12 years, but that's it's been almost, I guess, 10 years, I guess 9 years ago that new leadership took over. But of course, we all continue to work together and make the progress that we need to serve not just the state of Alabama, our primary service, but also students from all over the country and even internationally.
It's quite a track record. Is just any advice that you received early in your career that you find yourself still thinking about often?
Well, I don't know if it was advice, but I read somewhere what was the purpose of working. And the purpose of working was to make money and have fun. And I think that's a really good motto because for most of us, we do have to support ourselves and in some cases our families. But also, you need to enjoy and feel gratified about what you do. Not every day, everybody has bad days. But in general, I think if you feel like your profession and your work is not leading you long-term to where you want to go, that it's time to make a change. And I did that when I left industry and went back to school and got a doctorate to enter the field of teaching at university level. It was hard to give up a secure and interesting job for being a student again, but I think it was the best thing for me to do. I also feel that way when I came to Auburn. I enjoyed being at University of Pittsburgh, but I felt like I wanted to make a bigger impact in a leadership role, especially in a troubled department. would allow me to do that. And so I think you have to follow your heart to some degree, to follow your instincts, and just know that there's a lot of choices in life. And even if things don't work out 100%, you can always take something positive away from experiences.
In in your roles as both quite an accomplished researcher and a leader, an innovator inside the department and in the field, how important do you feel interdisciplinary collaboration is in the setting?
Well, industrial systems engineering is well known amongst engineering for being very multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. My own background is that way. My first degree is in civil engineering. I have a master's of business administration, and then I got my doctorate in engineering management and systems engineering. So if you look at the big issues facing society and the world, they are definitely multidisciplinary. And I have done work varying from ceramic engineering to telecommunication engineering to working obviously with computer science and manufacturing engineering. I'm a fellow of electrical engineering. So I'd like to think of my career a little bit as a Renaissance engineer. And I think a lot of engineers are that way, and certainly in industrial engineering. I don't work in the medical field much, but we have many people in industrial engineering who are doing great things in medical logistics and quality improvement of patient services and planning. So it's really important in our field. It's something we try to instill in our students. Frankly, the educational system in the US is pretty siloed still, at least in engineering. There's so many technical courses that it's hard to get enough interaction outside of the discipline. But we certainly try to do this with case studies and encouraging students to take co-op jobs and study abroad and other experiences that are going to bring them in contact with other disciplines to cross-fertilize.
That seems like a unique way of addressing the challenge. So as far as women inside the engineering sciences, studies show that women are awarded about 20% of undergraduate degrees in engineering. How have you seen the role of women evolve during your career, and what do you think about its future?
Well, I was one of the first cadres of undergrad engineering where there were some women. In other words, there weren't lone women. There were always other women in my classes, although not a huge percentage. So I never had to experience the extreme isolation of women who came before. But since that time, honestly, the engineering profession has not made that much progress in terms of the proportion of women participating in engineering. And this is especially true at the university faculty ranks. I'm the only tenure stream faculty member in my department who's female, and it's just a very low percent of women faculty members in engineering. So I've really tried to work to encourage students to consider graduate school and to learn about research, and to not be intimidated by thinking that they don't have enough background or enough intelligence to do it, because a lot of it's just hard work and learning and being open to learning. One reason, so one of my recent accomplishments, I have to blow my horn a little bit, is on the first book on women in industrial and systems engineering and their research. And so we have 25 chapters from women across the US and even some foreign universities showcasing the research, and these are all led by women investigative teams. And so I think one thing that's been so gratifying is that both men and women and young women are able to go to this volume and be amazed at the what's going on and being led by women in our field and be inspired. And that's really the purpose of the book, was more about a record and inspiration and motivation for young women to consider engineering and moreover to consider a research career, especially with a higher degree. But it's still difficult. People ask, well, what's the solution? If I had the answer to that, I would have shared it long ago. I think the main thing is that they found women who go into engineering tend to be in the upper part of their academic classes, whereas the men who choose to go into engineering are across the spectrum. And I think it's an intimidation thing that women aren't feeling confident enough to choose engineering unless they're an A or B plus student, where this is far from true. You can be a very successful engineer and be an average student as long as you have the willingness to learn and to work hard. And so that's one of the big messages that I try to get out. And the same is true for graduate school.
I can imagine that to produce a book like that and to edit it, and it probably was a very significant amount of your time. I'm sure time well spent, but certainly must have been quite a project. What kept you motivated throughout that process on why that publication was so important?
Well, I was invited by the series editor. So this is a series by a leading publisher highlighting women in the sciences and technology and their research. And I think there's been maybe 4 or 5 volumes published. And I was asked by the series editor if I would do a volume in industrial and systems engineering. At first I said no, honestly, because I was just so busy and it seemed overwhelming. But then I thought it's just an amazing opportunity and something the women of industrial and systems engineering deserve, and that I was very well connected in the field. So I decided to say yes, and the book was contributed, the chapters are all by invitation only, because I wanted it to truly represent the best research that's going on across the world, that's being led by women. So it did take a long time to come together. I had a really supportive editorial team behind me at the publisher, and then of course all the women and their investigative teams. In total, there was more than 50 authors represented, and the book ended up being much longer than any of the other books because we had such amazing participation. So it's almost 500 pages worth of different research in healthcare, in logistics, in manufacturing, really across the spectrum of a lot of world-class problems that are being addressed by women investigative teams. And it was published last fall, finally, a labor of love. And of course, I was really happy, but all of the authors and the other people who have examined the book, read the book, have all thought it was a volume worth doing, and will serve as a landmark for hopefully many years to come.
Well, that is quite an accomplishment. What accomplishments would you say, either professionally or personally, that you are the most proud of? I mean, it's certainly a storied list to choose from, but give us a couple that you're really very proud of.
Well, first I have to say my children, I have 3 adult children. They are all engineers. They are all Auburn engineers. And 2 of them are graduates of industrial and systems engineering. One is in materials engineering. They all have amazing careers. My oldest is my daughter, who works for Encompass Health in Birmingham, and is in charge of their logistics of well over 100 hospitals across the US and Puerto Rico. My older son works for Honda just east of Birmingham and is in charge of all paint things. And my youngest son just got a job offer and will hopefully start in September to work at Mayo Clinic, the world famous clinic doing safety and ergonomics work with their hospitals. So I have to be very proud of them. Um, Obviously, I think they were partly inspired or motivated by my career in engineering. I'm the only engineer in my whole family. And my husband, while being very supportive of my career and our children's choice, is not an engineer. He's a liberal arts major. So I'm particularly proud of that. I think another thing that I've been really proud of is my international work. I've had the good fortune to have 4 Fulbright appointments, 2 long-term appointments, one in Turkey and one in Chile, and 2 short-term appointments, both in the country of Colombia. And it's been wonderful to work with these universities abroad, especially in countries that still have some challenges becoming more modern and also inspiring more women to study engineering and to do engineering research. So it's been an awesome experience to live and work in another country and feeling impact. And I've retained long-term connections with all of those experiences as a Fulbright scholar. And finally, I think I've been really excited to join the Auburn family for such a long time. I feel like the rest of my career will be here. And to see Auburn flourish and grow. And as a parent, I'm a parent of Auburn graduates. I can see the value of the education and how important it is to the people of Alabama and to this region.
Hmm. You mentioned you're the only engineer in your family, or you were. What
Mhm.
was it that piqued your interest and led you into this field?
So that's a little unusual. I actually wanted to be an artist. I love art, I love drawing, but my father was not convinced that art would lead to a well-paying career. And I did well in math, so he kind of, I don't know if I would say forced, but he strongly encouraged me to choose a more technical major. And I really didn't like science very much. So I chose engineering because it's more math oriented. But I also found it's very artful. And in fact, my research is pretty artful. And by artful, I mean there's a lot of creativity and inspiration. My own work is inspired by natural systems. So part of it's observing the world around us and how we can translate this into mathematical models and computer algorithms to solve problems. So I found that engineering is actually a very creative field. And so that's how I entered it, and as the first engineer in my family, and sorry, the only ones until my children became engineers.
That's great. Any examples of how you've looked at the natural environment and used it as a way to help solve a problem somewhere else?
Quite a bit. A recent work that I've just finished involves looking at colonies of bats, and I know bats right now have a bad rap with the pandemic, but they are a very interesting natural system on how they communicate and successfully forage for food and interact as a community when they're essentially blind. They do it through sonar, and using that as kind of an analogy that can be brought in into a mathematical model and then computer code to solve problems. And so that's in terms of a lot of my problems are in logistics, in trying to make supply chains better, make warehousing more efficient. And it may seem weird to combine that with things like inspiration from bat systems, but it actually can be pretty effective.
That's fascinating. Oh, that's fascinating. Um, well, lastly, what advice would you give to a young woman who was maybe similarly to you as a young person considering entering the engineering sciences?
Well, I would definitely be very enthusiastic. Again, I would tell that young woman, don't be hung up that you're maybe not the best in your class, or you don't feel like you're a computer geek or a science geek or a math geek. Engineering is really, the people who flourish in engineering are well-rounded people who are hard workers, who are enthusiastic about what they do. And I think most young women are that way, and they want to have careers that are fulfilling and can lead to a lot of different things, and have responsibilities. So I think the main thing is just go for it, and do your best, and likely things will turn out well. The other thing is to look at how you approach your profession, again, to be happy in it, to feel like it's leading you as a person, as an individual, where you want to go with your life, that it's not just somewhere I spend 8 hours a day so I can do the stuff I really want to do. I think that's kind of a sad way to live. I know a lot of people live that way, especially in the US, but I don't think we need to. I think there are ways that you can meld your profession with your life, and make it more synergistic and on the same course, instead of one just being a supporting role for the other. And not to be afraid, be enthusiastic, be confident, and good things will happen.
That's such great advice. That's such great advice. Well, Dr. Smith, this has been such a great interview, and we are very honored to have you on our list. And again, just congratulations, and thank you so much for allowing us to share your story.
Thank you. War Eagle.